Truckers get used to weird things on the road. You see strange people, abandoned cars, towns that feel just a little off. You learn to ignore it, to keep driving. But some things aren't just strange. Some things are wrong. And when I found that abandoned semi, I knew something was very wrong. It was around 2 a.m., somewhere in rural Montana, an endless two-lane highway cutting through miles of empty fields. No streetlights, no gas stations, no houses, just the long stretch of black pavement disappearing into the darkness. I had been driving for hours, the radio playing softly, my rig humming beneath me. Then, through the static, I heard a voice. It was faint. At first, I thought it was just interference, some other driver's signal breaking up. But then I heard it again. A single word. Hello? I frowned, reaching for the CB mic. This is Rig 184. Who's calling? Silence. Then, a click, like someone had pressed the mic but wasn't speaking. Then, softer this time. Help. The word sent a chill down my spine. The voice was distorted, stretched, like it was coming from far away. Like it wasn't really coming through the radio at all. I flipped through channels. Who's calling? You need assistance? Nothing. Then, I saw the truck. Up ahead, maybe a quarter-mile down the road, a set of taillights glowed dimly in the darkness. Sitting dead center in the road. Not pulled over. Not in the breakdown lane. Right in the middle. As I got closer, my headlights swept over it. An 18-wheeler, parked sideways, blocking both lanes. The driver's side door was open, swinging slightly in the wind, like someone had left in a hurry. I hit the brakes hard. My rig shuddered, slowing to a stop a few feet away. The abandoned truck loomed in front of me, dark and completely still. No hazard lights, no movement, just there, waiting. I flicked on my high beams, and my stomach dropped. The inside of the cab was untouched. The driver's seat was pulled forward. A half-empty coffee cup sat in the holder. A jacket was draped over the back of the seat. And the radio, it was dangling off the dash, still connected, still hissing with static. I swallowed hard, checked my mirrors. The road behind me was empty, just me and this abandoned truck. I grabbed my CB mic again, my voice tighter now. This is Rig 184. I've got an abandoned semi blocking the road on Highway 200, near mile marker 86. No sign of the driver. Anyone else see this? Silence. Then, a click, like someone had just unmuted their mic. But no one spoke. Just a long, empty hiss of static. I forced myself to breathe. Told myself it was probably a breakdown. Maybe the driver walked off to get help. But something felt wrong. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped out of my rig, and onto the road. The night was too quiet. No wind, no crickets, just the sound of my own boots against the pavement. I took a few steps toward the open cab. Then, I saw the footprints. They led away from the truck, deep indentations in the dirt, heading straight into the fields. But there was something off about them. They were incomplete. Each print faded partway through, like whoever left them had started vanishing. I turned fast, scanning the road, the fields, the dark horizon. Nothing. No movement. Just my own uneasy breathing. I backed up toward my truck, gripping my flashlight too tight. Then, from inside the abandoned rig, the radio crackled. I froze. The radio shouldn't have been on. But through the static, a voice whispered, "Help." Soft, distant, like it was coming from somewhere else, somewhere far away. Then, silence. I turned and ran for my truck, jumped in, locked the doors, threw the rig into gear, and peeled out of there as fast as I could. Didn't look back, didn't check the mirrors, didn't breathe until I was miles down the road. I didn't stop until I reached a well-lit truck stop in the next town. And when I called it in, the cops didn't believe me. They said they'd send someone to check it out. But when they got there, the truck was gone. The only thing they found were 3 sets of tire tracks. One from the truck, 2 others, leading into the fields. Like someone else had been waiting out there, waiting for the driver, waiting for whoever stopped next. I don't stop for abandoned vehicles anymore. I don't answer voices on dead channels. Because now I know, not everyone who gets on the highway makes it to the other side. And some of them, they're still calling for help. I don't stop for people on the side of the road. It doesn't matter if they look lost, hurt, or even in danger. If they're standing alone in the middle of nowhere, they put themselves there for a reason. And sometimes they're not alone. It was a freezing night in northern Idaho, somewhere along a long stretch of highway that cut through miles of dense forest. The road was silent, the kind of silence that presses against you, making everything feel too still. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour, just dark trees stretching endlessly on either side of the road. Then, out of nowhere, I saw someone standing on the shoulder. At first, I thought it was just a mile marker or a sign, but as I got closer, I realized it was a man, standing perfectly still, right at the edge of the trees. And he wasn't moving, not turning toward me, not stepping back, just watching. A slow chill crawled up my spine. I flicked on my high beams, and for a split second, I saw him clearly. Tall, pale, wearing dark clothes. His eyes caught the light and reflected like an animal's. Then, as I passed, he disappeared, not stepped back into the woods, not turned away, vanished, like he had never been there at all. I gritted my teeth, refusing to check my mirrors. I kept driving, hands tight on the wheel. Then, I saw her, a woman, standing in the middle of my lane, a few hundred yards ahead. She was wearing a red sweatshirt and ripped jeans. Her head was tilted slightly to the side. Her arms hung limply at her sides. And just like the man, she wasn't waving for help, wasn't moving, just standing there, waiting. I honked. She didn't react. I flashed my high beams. Still, she didn't move. At the last second, I swerved into the other lane, my tires skidding on the pavement. As I passed, my headlights swept over her face. She was smiling, a thin, stretched out grin, and her eyes, they weren't looking at me. They were looking past me, at something behind my truck. A wave of pure dread slammed into me. I checked my mirrors. Nothing, just the long, empty highway. But I could feel it, that awful, sinking feeling that I wasn't alone anymore, that something had climbed into my truck. I pressed the gas pedal harder. The forest blurred past. I just needed to get to civilization, a gas station, a rest stop, anything. Then, I saw the body. It was lying in the road, just ahead, face down, motionless, like they had just collapsed there. A fresh wave of panic surged through me. If I stopped, I'd be completely alone in the dark. If I kept driving, I might be running someone over. I clenched my jaw, my grip white-knuckle tight. Every instinct screamed at me, "Don't stop." I swerved into the opposite lane. The second I did, the body sat up. Not slowly, not like someone waking up. It jerked upright in an instant, like a puppet on strings. And in my side mirror, as I sped past, I saw its head turn to watch me. I didn't slow down, didn't look back. I just kept driving. And in my mirrors, I saw them. More people, standing in the trees. Dozens of them, lined up along the road. Silent, still, all facing my truck, watching me leave. I drove for nearly an hour before I reached a truck stop, pulled in under the brightest lights I could find. My hands were shaking. I sat there, breathing hard, my heart still hammering in my chest. I didn't know what I had just seen, didn't know who those people were, but I knew one thing for sure. It was a trap. The man standing in the trees, the woman in the road, the body lying in my path. They wanted me to stop. They wanted me to get out of my truck. And if I had, I don't think I would have made it back. I don't drive through that part of Idaho anymore. I don't stop for people on the side of the road. And I don't trust bodies lying in the dark. Because now I know, some things don't want to ride. They want you to get out. And if you do, you won't be seen again. Truckers have a saying, if your gut tells you to leave, listen to it. Because out here, in the middle of nowhere, the road is long and empty, and the only people you meet at night, they're the ones who waited for you. It was past 2 a.m., and I was running on fumes. Not the kind of exhaustion where you just need a nap, the kind where your body starts playing tricks on you. I had planned to stop at a well-lit truck stop, but I had miscalculated. Instead, I found myself in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, surrounded by nothing but open plains and a sky so dark it felt like it could swallow you whole. Then, up ahead, I saw a small dirt lot just off the highway. Perfect place to pull over. Perfect place to make a mistake. I eased the truck onto the gravel, killed the engine, and let out a long breath. The world around me was silent. No wind, no bugs, just the distant ringing in my ears that comes from too much time on the road. I locked the doors, leaned back, and let my eyes drift shut. Then, I heard footsteps. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard them again. Slow, crunching against the gravel. Getting closer. Someone was walking toward my truck. I froze. I cracked one eye open, but I didn't move. Didn't turn on the light. Didn't reach for my CB. I just listened. The footsteps stopped right outside my cap. And then, a voice. Hey. My blood ran cold. It wasn't loud. Wasn't urgent. It was just a soft, casual greeting. Like a friend saying hello. Like it was normal to be standing in the dark, whispering at my window in the middle of the night. Then, the door handle moved. I lunged forward and hit the lock button again. Even though I knew I had already locked it, the handle jiggled once. Then again. Then, slowly. A third time. Like he was testing it. Like he was making sure it was locked. Then, silence. I sat there, barely breathing. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the footsteps started again, moving away. Slow, unhurried, like he was giving up, like he had all the time in the world. I waited until the footsteps faded into nothing. Then, as quietly as I could, I reached for my keys. But before I could start the engine, something slammed against my passenger side window. I nearly jumped out of my skin. A face, too close, pressed against the glass. A wide grin stretching across pale, weathered skin. Eyes too dark to see in the dim light. Just a grinning mouth. And as I scrambled for the keys, his hand lifted, and he waved. I threw the truck into gear. The tires screamed against the gravel as I sped onto the highway. Didn't look back. Didn't check the mirrors. Didn't even breathe until I was miles away. Only then did I check my mirrors. The road behind me was empty. No cars. No headlights. Like he had never been there at all. I didn't stop until I reached a well-lit truck stop an hour later. Pulled into a spot right under the floodlights. I sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to slow my breathing. And that's when I noticed it. My passenger side window was cracked. A hairline fracture, running from the center outward. Like it had been hit with something sharp, or something strong. And on the glass, a perfect, greasy handprint. The next morning, I told a few truckers about it over coffee. One of them, an older guy with tired eyes, gave me a slow nod. You were lucky, he said. Lucky? I asked. Lucky he didn't break the glass? The old trucker shook his head. No. Lucky you didn't open the door. I don't stop in isolated places anymore. I don't pull over in dirt lots. And I sure as hell don't ignore my gut. Because I don't know what that man wanted. I don't know how long he had been standing there before he spoke. But I do know one thing. If my doors hadn't been locked, if I had taken even a second longer to react, he would have gotten in.